The following is an excerpt from the According to Metal podcast. Joining us here on According to Metal is a good friend of the program, somebody we've had on the show before, and we talked on the first episode of According to Metal that we really felt that Dream Theater's newest album, The Astonishing, which was on the first episode of the show, that while the album you could have mixed reviews and mixed feelings about, we always felt that in a live setting, it's probably an unbelievable thing to see. And joining us on the show is someone who not only was able to see the show, but like I said, a good friend of the program from LadyObscure.com, the editor, the author, the very talented, the lovely, the elegant, the wonderful Lacy Mucklow. Lacy, welcome to According to Metal. Thanks for coming back.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me again.
We didn't scare you the first time. That's crazy. So you've seen not one, but two shows that I'm really interested to talk to you about. I know Biv is as well, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners are too. But like I said, in the first episode of According to Metal, we reviewed The Astonishing. And, you know, again, months later, I still go back to it. And yeah, you know, it's one of those albums that, we're not just talking a concept album. We're talking a story. We're talking that every track bleeds into the next. I mean, it's not like it's a loosely based concept album. I mean, this is it, like it or not. This is it, what the album is. But Dream Theater, consummate pros, we figured, in a live setting, it's got to be something that's pretty incredible. What are your thoughts, Lacy? What did you think of it when you got a chance to see it? Kind of take us through it.
Okay, well, I got to see him in Baltimore. That was the closest date to me. And they've been doing all of their shows in these really nice old theaters that are very ornate. So it's kind of a nice venue for the kind of show that they put on. And in these shows, they had digital screens behind them that throughout the show, what they would do is they had visuals that were going on throughout the whole concert. That some of it was CGI, some of it was like green screen type acting.
Oh, wow.
That it was all put together where you could see the whole storyline kind of being acted out behind them while they were playing. And actually, a lot of the attention for me kind of went to the screens rather than watching them play the whole time, because even though I knew the storyline, it's not like I really needed it to know what was going on. They were just so... you can help but watch it. It took up, they were so well lit. It took your attention, and it really it was almost like they were a pit orchestra, in a musical. And, what you were seeing on the screens were kind of like the stage show. So there wasn't a whole lot of showmanship per se from the Dream Theater guys, because I guess they wanted your attention to be more with the screens, and they just kind of played out the whole musical. And I think, like you guys said, and like I think most of us thought, it was really set for a live performance, maybe more so than an album, because they really do blend into each other. It's really meant to be seen, I think, as a live show and as a whole concept story.
Lacy, that brings up a really interesting question. Now, for most people, this was not their first Dream Theater show. For most, I know there's probably a few, but
I met the guy next to me. It was his first one ever.
Wow,
which I find incredible. But of those that this is not their first show, that they have been long-time Dream Theater fans, how did you think this played to your traditional progressive metal Dream Theater fan?
I don't know. I was kind of glad in some ways for the change, because I think I figured this was maybe my sixth Dream Theater show total. So, they've always had some kind of like screen stuff going on, but they're very small, and just kind of like, extra things to have in the show, but you still would watch the band mostly. It was kind of, for me, a nice change of pace. And you really got to hear them, maybe more than see them. I don't know. It was fine for me as a regular Dream Theater attender, to have something a little bit different, and that it wasn't kind of like a rehash of their same style or show or whatever you want to call it. I was happy with it, and I think for the first time, Dream Theater showgoers, I know a lot of people were impressed. I know, like, when in my particular concert, there were people, I think the orchestra section was standing the whole concert. And I was in the balcony. For me, it's a better view because I'm short. But the people up there were respectful, but there were people that were standing in between songs. They were very energetic. They were singing along, and the guy that I told you that I sat next to, was his first show. He was very impressed. So I think even if it is a first show for people, that they would walk away satisfied as well.
Well, how did the band sound, Lacy? Because, what's interesting about Dream Theater, and mainly, I guess, let me just highlight, or let's focus in on James LaBrie, because I think, consistently the band sounds incredible. Petrucci sounds great every single time. I mean, the band's just one of the tightest bands that you'll ever hear, especially live. But let's be honest, LaBrie's vocal performances, especially live, been all over the place. Sometimes he's fantastic. Other times you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? But yet on the Astonishing, and Biv and I said this in the review, and I know you said this on Lady Obscure, James LaBrie sounded the best I've heard him on any album in a decade. Easy. How did he sound live?
Yeah, he was great live. I mean, he's kind of got the thing where, at least for me, I've noticed when he gets in the higher octave, it's hard to understand him with the enunciation. But his voice was clear as far as the pitch. He was, in tune. He sounded great. He had one little moment. It was really kind of funny. I guess when he was singing, he's like, I'm choking on my own spit. And he kind of had to regroup. But that was the only off moment in the whole concert. As far as his vocal performance. And I think in the last couple of concerts, he sounded really good. I know he had some voice damage a while back, and I know that I think he's finally healed from that, and he's sounding really good these days.
Now, I know they played the entire Astonishing album. Did they do anything else, or was that the entire show?
That was it. It was the album, and that was it. There was the opener that you hear on the album. They had the intermission at the same time on the album, in the Act 2 beginning. And then they finished it out. They had everybody singing on 1,000 Voices, that song, at the very end. And then they thanked everybody, and the end. No encore. No other music from past albums. That was it. And It was about 2.5 or 3 hours.
Oh, I bet. Absolutely. Now, this is something that absolutely begs to be a DVD release. Have you seen any talk about that at all, Lacy, of something that, if for some reason the fans who aren't able to see them as they come through your town, or they're not able to see them live, has there been any talk about a DVD recording of this concert specifically, or no?
I'm not certain, but I know a lot of people would like that because their tour dates are not very expansive in the U.S., especially in the South. I had heard the night before us in Baltimore, they were at Radio City Music Hall in New York City, and I heard they might have been taping for a DVD at that show.
Sweet.
But I'm not certain. They might be entertaining the idea. I just don't know which show it will be or if it's a definite, but I think they might be considering it. But I know there are a lot of people who came to our show from all over North Carolina. And actually, I don't know if you know Halcyon Way, the band.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Atlanta. 2 of the guys from the band drove up from Atlanta to see this show.
Really?
And they met up with us in line, and we were chatting for a while that they left like 10 p.m. the night before, drove for 10 hours.
Oh, geez.
They stopped and looked at D.C. for a little bit because they were supposed to be playing with Queensryche when we had our blizzard in January. And so they didn't get to see D.C. at all because they couldn't even get into the city. So they did a real quick car stop through the town, and then they kept on driving to Baltimore and crashed for a little while, had dinner, met us at the concert, enjoyed the concert. They flew the next day back to Atlanta.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty crazy.
Incredible.
That's cool. Now, speaking of New York, let me ask you, the concert I'm almost more jealous of that I didn't get to attend that you did was Avantasia in New York City. And Avantasia is a band that does a good amount of touring. It's just not here. They usually will hit the East Coast, with one show. Maybe they'll hit Toronto, maybe they'll hit LA, and that's it. And that's really nothing more of, well, we'll stop in LA because we're probably heading to Japan, and maybe we'll, stop, in either New York or Toronto, the very, very far east of North America, and call it a day. So it's a show I've never been able to see, and incredibly jealous that you got a chance to see that. But another event-like concert, not something that is just a band shows up and performs. There's a lot behind it, and a lot of theatrics, and a lot, guest vocalists, and et cetera, which is probably why it's not the easiest tour to pull off and bring around the world. But tell us what you thought of Toby and the rest of the guys at Avantasia. What did you think?
Yeah, that was another great show. Like you said, they tour more in Europe and other places. Actually, the Anaheim and New York shows on this tour were the very first time they had played the U.S. They have not been to North America as Avantasia before. So that was a huge thing. And so there was a lot riding on these concerts. The New York show had a good amount of people at it. And actually, Toby was very surprised at the response. He said, I can't even believe this is a North American show.
Wow.
Yeah, which is kind of like, I don't know if that's an
good
insult
and
or
sad
compliment.
at the same time.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. But, I mean, you could tell they were electrified by the response. I mean, and they went nonstop, 3.5 hours total, no intermission, just them.
So no opener, no nothing.
No opening band, no nothing. No intermission, no breaks, no nothing. And in fact, they did a lot of chatting in between songs, so it kind of kept going longer and longer, which I don't think anybody minded. But it got to the point where he said, if we keep playing, we'll get fined because it'll be past curfew. But, we don't care. And they did the whole set.
Wow. And Toby is a great front band, so he's a lot of fun. Truly a character, so I'm sure, in order to kind of give the guys a break, he, was yucking it up with you guys and joking around and stuff like that. He's really good at that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was very friendly with the crowd. Of course, they had, I guess, 7 vocalists there. And then, of course, the band who played all the music, so they have a high amount of stamina right there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was great. I was happy to see Jorn Landa sing finally. That was the first time I've been able to
see, that's the part I'm almost even more upset that I didn't get to see. I love
And that was
Jorn.
my next question, was the guest vocalist. Obviously, Jorn was there, but who else were you surprised to see? Anybody?
Yeah, Michael Kiska was there. From Halloween a while back, sings with Amanda Somerville. On their duet albums, they have 2 of those out now, and Amanda Somerville was also there singing.
Oh, wow.
A lot of background vocals, but I think she did a little bit of some lead vocals as well. Eric Martin was there, actually, from Mr. Big. Ronnie Atkins was there from Pretty Maids.
Nice.
Yeah, Herbie Langens was there singing. And then Oliver Hartman, who did lead guitar, he did a lot of vocals, too. So, and then of course Toby. So it was a full complement. It was a great concert. They didn't stop. And they did a lot from Ghostlights, but they did a lot from the past discography as well. So I thought they might do kind of like a Dream Theater thing and do like the whole Ghostlights album front to back. But they did I think 6 songs from Ghostlights and then a bunch from a lot of other albums all the way back to the beginning. So
cool.
It was a nice set list.
Very cool. So of the 2 shows that you saw, Lacy, which one, I know they're obviously way different, but which one was the one that you're like, oh man, that was an outstanding show? Or were both of them really in that category?
Gosh, I don't know if I could choose because they really are different. I don't know, maybe Avantasia, just because it's not something you see every day. And it was really an energetic performance, and I got to see a lot of people that I might not be able to see otherwise.
Very cool. Very cool. So what's going on? What's new with Lady Obscure, or what's going on with yourself in regards to some things that not only us as fans of the website and what you write and et cetera like that, but the listeners as well? What are some things that are new that are going on Lady Obscure that you maybe want to share with us?
Oh, well, there's lots of reviews going up by the whole team. I'm, of course, working on my own reviews. Hoping to do some that are coming up, releasing on June 3rd, or some of the new ones that I'm looking at. Signum Regis came out with an album in November, but they're re-releasing it on LP on June 3rd with a new mix. So I'm going to review that one. And With Them is coming out with